Today, we open the series with a discussion on the role of women in the film industry, and specifically in covering societal pressure issues. And to lead this conversation, let me introduce you to Hermoine Maccura Noble, the first Australian English-speaking TV anchor in the Middle East. Her current show, Arabian Delights, is on Sky TV and is the director of the World of Women Festival, which celebrates women and their unique perspectives in film. She'll be in conversation with the critically acclaimed multi-award winning film director and producer, Vibha Bakshi. And I leave it to Hermoine to introduce Vibha in full. Hermoine, thank you so much for joining us today. Over to you.
Thanks, Jonathan. Hi, everyone. It's so good to be with you here today. I'm coming to you live from Sydney, Australia. Today, we'll be focusing on gender inequality and gender-based violence, which is also one of the most widespread violations of human rights. So today, I'm honored to welcome a woman who has used her skills in film to be a force for change in her native country, India, and a committed advocate for women's safety and empowerment across the world. Her films deal with some of the most burning and urgent social issues. They leave the viewer not with outrage, but rather hope. Now that is powerful. It's my pleasure to introduce Vibha Bakshi, CEO of Responsible Films. Vibha, how are you?
So happy to once again be part of this amazing and powerful platform. Thank you so much, Hermoine.
So good to see you, Vibha. I can't wait to get into this conversation with you. So before we dive in, I want to begin by hearing about where it all began for you. How did you venture into directing and producing films? Tell us more.
So, well, Hermoine, I did my studies. I did journalism and film from Boston University. And then I was very fortunate because very quickly I was able to become anchor reporter for a business news. And I think it was during this time that instead of, just about the headlines, which I thoroughly enjoyed, I began searching for a lot of answers to a lot of burning issues. And I think I could see myself changing in that period, though it was a big high to have the headlines hitting you every day, but something had changed. And I'm very fortunate that I met my partner, that is my film partner, Marianne Delio, who's an Oscar-winning filmmaker, and our journey into documentary began. And I think the most important lesson that I learned working with her is when you take on social issues, it is very easy to sensationalize, but very hard to sensitize. And as I continue my journey, this is one thing that as a filmmaker, I continue to strive to do every day, and that is to sensitize my audience.
Oh, I love that. Sensationalize or sensitize. And we see that a lot today in mainstream media as well, where some things are, we have a lot of opinions and agendas instead of the facts and the truth. Now, you co-produced several films clearly focused on big problems. Terror at Home, which is a film which was a part of the US government's Emmy award-winning campaign to stop violence against women, and Too Hot Not to Handle, HBO's acclaimed film on global warming. What made you focus on these subjects?
Well, I think as far as issues are concerned, it didn't matter to me. What mattered is how we're able to reach the audience. And honestly, 25 years later, after I graduated from Boston University, I received the honorary doctorate from my alma mater. And what the doctorate said was what you were saying, that your films do not leave the viewer with outrage, but with hope. So whatever the issue may be, I will always leave the viewer with hope, because without hope, no fight can be won. And these are fights, irrespective whether it's gender inequality, it's global warming, whatever the issues may be. These are fights that we cannot afford to lose.
Absolutely. Now, many attending this conference are aware of the serious issue of gender-based violence in India. Following the horrific gang rape and death of Nirbhaya in New Delhi in 2012, you directed and produced Daughters of Mother India. It became a multi-award-winning film and also started a national movement for change. So we're going to take a short look now at a clip from the film. Let's watch.
How can an ordinary bus ride home go so horribly wrong?
It's quite clear that when 4 or 5 people settle on one woman and rape her, then they don't see the woman as a person.
Sexual violence is real. Bakshi ka ghar kahan hai? And it does not only happen in the streets, it can happen at home, it can happen just anywhere.
72 hours after that brutal rape of a student in Delhi.
It was a case which could have happened to any normal Delhi girl. Enough is enough. We can't take this victimization anymore.
When you talk about rape, in Hindi they say, Izzat lut gayi. Izzat, it's like you've lost your honor.
She's first raped, then she has to tell the whole story before the policeman, then she has to tell the whole story before the judge. She's raped over and over again in a way.
Crime against women has traditionally received low priority amongst the police and unfortunately in the judiciary as well.
I am searching for answers to so many questions.
जो इतने छोटे छोटे बच्चों के साथ इस तरह की जो घटनाएं हो रही हैं, वो ये हमारी पाशविकता को ही दिखा रहा है कि हम समाज में मानव कहलाने के लायक नहीं.
The same Delhi, same people, but now the cases are more. What does it mean?
प्रॉब्लम बड़ी है. 4005 साल से जो सोसाइटी बनी हुई है वो एक दिन में नहीं बदलने जा रही.
कोई भी बदलाव एक दिन में नहीं आता. It takes time to change.
1947 में जो फ्रीडम मिली थी, सिर्फ मर्दों को नहीं मिली थी, वो औरतों को मिली थी.
What happened to our fight for justice? Did anything change after all those protests in our country?
Wow, Vibha, I'm sure everybody that is tuning in now with us got the shivers like me. Just makes your hair stand up on your arms. You know what's interesting, Vibha, is 20 years ago, I began my career in the media, in journalism in India. And I used to travel around Mumbai by myself, even in the middle of the night. And it was so safe. And since then, 20 years has passed, so many things have changed where it's almost, it's impossible for women to travel, I think, past 7 or 8 in the night by themselves. It's dangerous. I want to come back to this film now. Tell us more about this film.
So, Hermoine, when this horrific and brutal rape happened, there was almost like a revolution that broke out in India. And I have to say, I was in Delhi, very much part of what was going on with the protests. And I stood there as a very proud daughter of India, because I truly believe that no other country in the world reacted to a gender crime the way we did. But at the same time, I asked myself, how did we go so horribly wrong? And actually, Daughters of Mother India is a cry of my conscience. And I felt at that point, the police, which is the front line of the justice system, is a very, very integral part of this entire movement. Because unless the police is not gender sensitized, justice will not only be delayed, it will be denied. And that's the time when I tried to gain access to the Delhi police, which was almost impossible. But as they say, when the intent and emotion is right, the universe makes things happen. I did get access to the Delhi police, and I went so well prepared to ask him for permission to enter into the police control and command room. And I think within 2 minutes of him seeing me, he said, I'm a father of 2 daughters. Wow. And for the first time in the history of the police, cameras were allowed inside as the revolution was brewing outside. And since then, I have to say that the film did win the award from the President of India, but more importantly than that, the film has been screened for 150,000 police officers across the country. And this to us is victory. And
just out of interest, Vibha, was your life at risk at any point while filming? Because this was a very controversial subject, I remember in 2012. So did you face any backlash, or even from other parties or groups? Was your life at risk while you were filming or making this film at all?
It wasn't. It wasn't. And actually, to a large extent, the support that I received from the ground, because that is with any documentary, there are no scripts, there are no retakes, there are no second chances. It is the people who make things happen. And this is what happened with Daughters of Mother India. I think people played a very, very important role in having that courage to speak in the film. We were very worried what would happen in terms of the reaction of the people, given that the issue was so volatile. And here I had the police and rape. So actually, I was more scared of what the reaction of the police would be. And I continue to remain, I think, in shock and awe that it was the police that took the movement forward. And that to us was something that we could have only wished for. And that's exactly what happened. And to be very clear, this film has been independently produced by me. So there is no government involved, and this funding did not come from any government agencies. And in fact, the police commissioner of Delhi who watched the film, he was watching it for the first time along with an audience of 800 people.
Absolutely, that's amazing. I believe there's a common thread of humanity that unites us across the world. And there's no way any human being can watch this film and not be motivated to do something about this situation globally, because we're facing gender-based violence across the world. All women are facing that. I mean, even in the UK, in the US, South Africa, across the world, everywhere I travel, it's the same issue. And so that story is the story that connects all of us women. In a way, all women across the world can identify with that victim for sure. I want to move on to your next film called Sunrise, which has been selected as part of the UN's global He for She movement, and it's to be showcased in 71 countries. It's your latest documentary that you have succeeded to uncover the extraordinary destinies of men in the district of Haryana, a strongly patriarchal state bordering India's capital, New Delhi. You found men who fight for gender justice and against gender-based violence. We also know them as male allies. How did this come about, Vibha? Tell me more.
So I truly believe, Hermoine, that as a filmmaker, I don't get to choose the film. The film chooses who it wants to go to. And this was completely the case of Sunrise. So I was filming across the country and I reached Haryana. Now, being one of the most patriarchal states, very, very difficult for a woman filmmaker to enter. So I don't think I would have chosen to have filmed in Haryana, but it was during my screening when an activist came up to me and said, there is a farmer who in an arranged marriage has married a gang rape survivor. Actually, I was stunned to hear that information, because for something like this to happen in one of the most, in a state where, male dominance is everything and it is strongly embedded with patriarchal values is absolutely unheard of. And so I asked the activist for the name of the farmer or the village. He didn't have it. But with the help of the police, I entered the hinterlands of Haryana and I found my hero. When I entered the village, people were mocking him for the decision that he had taken. But when I met him, I just looked at my team. We were two of us. And I said, he is our sunrise. Sunrise as in SONRISE. And this is how Sunrise was born. I have created a teaser, especially for the audience and the viewers here. So please take a look at the teaser of Sunrise.
The Haryanvi male is someone who looks at women, choti hai. That is ingrained in the Haryanvi side.
क्या है कि पुरुष प्रधान समाज है, यहाँ पुरुष ही फैसले करते हैं, महिलाएं उसमें इंटरफियर नहीं करती।
ये लड़की तो हम नहीं देंगे, कराओ अल्ट्रासाउंड इन्हों देख लें इसके पेट में क्या है।
हर कोई जाकर के अपने लिंग की जांच करा रहा था। कुछ लोग यहाँ भी जांच कर रहे थे। जांच कराने के बाद में लड़का हुआ तो रखना है, लड़की भी तो गिरानी है।
इन डिस्ट्रिक्ट्स को आम जुबान में कुड़ी मार डिस्ट्रिक्ट कहा जाता है, लड़की को मारने वाले।
सबसे मेन बात यह कि लड़कियों की कमी के कारण मेरी शादी नहीं हुई।
भ्रूणहत्या के कारण लड़कियों की कमी हुई है, इसलिए हमारे जनरेशन है उसमें भुगतना पड़ रहा है।
जब शादी नहीं होती तो बहुत सारे ऐसे तरीके उनको अपनाने पड़ते हैं जो समाज की नजरों में बहुत गैर जरूरी है। जैसे कि झारखंड से अपनी पत्नी को खरीद करके लेकर के आना। एक नए प्रकार के गिरोह पैदा हो गए हैं समाज में जो लड़कियों की सप्लाई का काम करते हैं।
There is a strong correlation in districts which have low sex ratio and crime against women.
25-30 years ago, I could not have imagined a gang rape in Haryana. Today, you're hearing it every second, third day.
ना तो ये था कि भाई कुछ नशा हुआ या मैं बेहोश हो गई थी, मेरे को ये पता था कि भी तेरे साथ में गलत हो रहा है।
Then she's taken to another person and another person. She's raped again and again and again.
जैसे समय रिश्ता होता है वैसे मेरा रिश्ता तय हुआ था।
अगर ये बात इनको शादी के बाद पता चलेगी तो क्या होगा? मैंने
तभी कहा कि रिश्ता भी आपसे करूंगा और न्याय भी आपको दिलाऊंगा। ये चीज मेरी गारंटी है, मैं लड़ूंगा आपके लिए। मैं आखिरी सांस तक लड़ूंगा, हाई कोर्ट से लेकर सुप्रीम कोर्ट तक लड़ूंगा।
बेटी का पिता होना मतलब सोसाइटी में अलग सी सोसाइटी इन लोगों ने बना रखी है कि ये बेटी का पिता है। मैं मेरी बेटी के लिए कुछ करूं, उसे लड़की होने पर कभी ये महसूस ना हो कि वो एक लड़की है।
और वो रुकेगी कब? जब पुरुष की तो मानसिकता में बदलाव हो जाए और महिला को उसके अधिकारों का पता चल जाए।
तो अपनी आजादी के लिए करोगे संघर्ष?
बड़ा कोई कहे क्यों कराओ पढ़ाओ, ये तो दूसरे आदन है।
मेंटलिटी प्रॉब्लम जो है ना, इसको जंग ऐसा लग चुका है कि धीरे धीरे करके घर घर में, हर गांव गांव में अपने खुद के माँ बाप से लड़ने की जरूरत है।
मुझे देखिए, मैंने महसूस किया, मैं बदल गया। जिस दिन दूसरे पुरुष महसूस करेंगे तो वो बदल जाएंगे।
Wow, Vibha. I must say, I got to see that clip before the interview, and I cried my eyes out. I just cried my eyes out. I'm sure many people watching now, it's so, even now, it just brings back all these emotions and feelings because, there's that common thread of humanity that unites us. And as women, we can identify and feel for those people in that village as well and from that area. And it's just amazing documentary. So Sunrise has been selected as part of the UN's global He for She movement to be showcased in 71 countries around the world, as I mentioned. And it's another fabulous testimony of how ordinary people can have an extraordinary impact, which is he's my hero. It's ordinary heroes, ordinary everyday heroes. As a female filmmaker, how difficult was it to question the patriarchs?
Oh, Hermoine, it was something that I wasn't prepared for. And actually, because we were following, 8 men had raped the survivor, and they're powerful men, and they had seen me in court. So there was that constant risk that we were being watched or we were being followed. It would get very dark by 5 o'clock. So we had to keep changing our routes. And to have a woman question the patriarchs was not the wisest route to do. And I remember when I first entered into the state, the chief patriarch, he is the most powerful patriarch in India. He's got thousands of villages under him. And he looked at me and he said, there is no place for women here. Today, Hermoine, the same patriarch who said this to me is screening sunrise across thousands of villages. He is today our cheerleader. And to us, this is triumph. To be able to change the mindset. And what he has done is, it is men who are talking to men. And I think that has unleashed a very powerful movement on the ground. 10,000 villages have pledged to stop female feticide. Today, the school sunrise is now, it has entered into schools because we feel it's very, very important to have the conversation on gender inequality with boys who are 15 and not men at 50. And so it's very important that it is now that we change the narrative and make men and women, boys and girls, stand in solidarity to create a bold and united force for equality. So these gender violence, it's not a women's issue. These are human rights violations, and we are in this struggle together.
But just out of interest, when you played this film in Haryana, how did the men react? Like, what was the initial reaction?
It was before the screening happened. I can tell you, I was a bundle of nerves. In fact, I did not even want to be there in case the backlash got very aggressive. So I hid. I was right at the end, and I was like, I hope nobody finds me. I was amazed because the same patriarch, he had not watched the film before. He did not know what the outcome of the film is. In the beginning, he and that entire council was getting very restless. And I could see at one point he wanted to get up and leave the film. But somehow he stayed for the entire film, and then he was the first man to get up to give the standing ovation. And that to us was both a humbling and a powerful moment. And then we screened for the Haryana police. And I cannot even, words cannot describe that experience. There were about 10,000 police officers there, and they were cheering right through the film. In fact, they started interacting with the characters, which was quite amazing. So we are very, very humbled and grateful for the support. It is people who take the movement forward.
Mm-hmm. You see, that's what we need. We don't need reformation, we need transformation. So I want to ask you, how did movements like Me Too and the exposure of disgraced film financiers like Harvey Weinstein change the face of women in film? How do you think movements like that change the face of women in film?
I think, I hope 100 more movements get unleashed, and not just one. These are, in order to be able to break the conspiracy of silence, is the hardest thing to do. Today, you and I are sitting on this platform, very powerful platform, but I know that there have been many instances where I myself have been very scared to break the silence. So I can just imagine, and that's what we have to do. We have to put the shame where it belongs. And, I'm going to take this Me Too movement and put it on the rape survivor in our film Kusum, who dared to unveil and speak. She's in the film and she has unveiled. And it was after months of filming that she one day walked in and she said, "The shame is not mine. It belongs to those who have committed this crime on me." And this is a game changer. And this is what we need. And I really hope that movements like Me Too give many more women the strength to speak up.
I agree with you. And I think it has. I really think it has. It's changed the way women see the world.
Absolutely. And Hermoine, I hope it's not just women speaking up. I hope men are there to speak up too.
Absolutely, our male allies. Now, just before we wrap up, I want to ask you, as a female director and producer, you are a role model for many women watching, the hundreds of women and men also on this platform that are watching this program. I just want to ask you, what is your advice for up-and-coming women in film?
I struggle every day. I would say that I am a struggling documentary filmmaker, but one thing that this journey has taught me, it's not enough to just have the craft. You have to be able to have the courage, the conviction, and the commitment to stand your ground. So it is a tough journey. Hermoine, what you do with your festival is really, you give a platform to filmmakers like us to be able to voice the opinions of so many incredible people out there. I say this again and again, as a filmmaker, we are only the storyteller. It is
the very important stories that need to be told. Vibha,
I think it's a combination of everything, but
World of Women Film Festival is my love letter to women around the world. And in my own journey and my own success, it was something where I feel when women are empowered, they start to lift other women up. So I want to thank you so much for joining us today, and a big thank you for being with us here and sharing more about your documentaries as well as your story. Everybody, this is Vibha Bakshi, CEO of Responsible Films. Thank you very much to our hundreds of guests that are joining us from across the world. Jonathan, I'm going to hand it back over to you for the rest of our program today.